let's start with the notion of the wealth gap and the New Deal for white America. That's chapter 4 in your book. Because I think that's where it really started. A lot of people in this country will say, well, my family came here with nothing, with $2 in my pocket, and my great grandfather, and we made it. Why can't you? Tell us why.
This is one of the myths that I think I try to debunk in the book, this idea that you can leave the system of credit and banking and federal policy intact, and you either alone or through your community can accumulate wealth, work hard, save your money, and close the wealth gap, or gain riches yourselves. And of course it does work in individual cases. But what we do is tend to take these individual cases, these exceptions, and make rules out of them. If you look at means and medians, the average American, their assets are their homes, their education, something like a 401k. And across every income level and education level, the Black and white racial wealth gap is massive. So at the high end, it's about 20 to 1. And at the lower end, it's about 10 to 1. So what you'll note is the higher income you go, the higher up you go in the income scale and the education scale, the larger that gap is. And that is because the history of racial segregation and racism embedded in market values, in housing values, in neighborhood values, in employment values, right, has sedimented those racial wealth gaps. And unless the sort of structures are changed, individuals can sort of beat the odds, but the odds are the odds. And I think this is what I try to break down in the book, because it's not that what I'm saying is, don't work hard and don't, use community empowerment to, as a means of protest, as a means of really getting changes. But let's not lose sight of the fact that the racial wealth gap was created through federal policy, enforced by law. It was explicitly racist credit policies that created where we are today. You don't even have to go back to slavery. You don't have to go back to Jim Crow. You don't have to go back to, sharecropping, although all of that is relevant. You can go back to the financial crisis of 2008, where Black communities lost 53% of their wealth. If you want to go a little bit further back, you can go back to the fact that the civil rights laws, as monumental as they were, did not remedy the system of redlining that we had from 1934 until 1960. Or you can go back to 1934, where those red line maps specifically said, look, this neighborhood is Black, and we are not going to lend to this neighborhood. It wasn't an accident. It wasn't like a correlation. Race was the number one thing used. And that's the chapter I think you're referring to. And until you understand the history, I think, and really the book, I have been hoping that it's white policymakers that understand this. And I think it has been, heated to some extent by them, but you can't just keep shifting the blame and the onus on the communities who did not create this problem to fix it.
I can't even imagine having just come off of a plantation and saving every dime because I see a future to have it taken away. And then what do? And in the midst of that, we had the Red Summer of 1919, and then 1921, Tulsa.
But there's Wilmington, Delaware, and Atlanta, Georgia, and Fulton County. There's the list.
And that's what I'm saying. So even when we don't have the bank, we rely on self-build, and then somebody comes through an act of racism, terrorism, domestic terrorism, and takes it away. And then we have to build again. So we keep rebuilding. And we're going to talk about solutions at the end of this, but I want this drumbeat to really sit in people's spirits, right? There's nothing deficient about Black people. We've always saved, we've always invested, we've always done for self. We've always pulled ourselves up even when we didn't have boots or bootstraps.